So hello, and thank you for tuning into my BIO103 green technology presentation. This is David Andrejek, and today is May 12th, 2017. So my presentation is on switchgrass biofuel. So biofuel is a fuel produced by biological processes such as growing things in agriculture, as opposed to fossil fuels, which are created through a geological process, such as coal and oil. And the most common biofuel in the world is ethanol, which in the U.S. is commonly made from corn, but it can be made from other food products as well, such as wheat, beet, sugarcane. And biofuel is desirable as it is renewable and it could be made in liquid form, so it could be used as a transportation fuel. And many other renewables are not easily made into transportation fuels. Now, specifically, switchgrass biofuel it differs from ethanol because it's not made from a food product. Switchgrass is actually a common grass that's in the native to the U.S. And this became popular, the idea of switchgrass biofuel, after George W. Bush gave a State of the Union address in 2006, and he talked about the desire to move in the direction of switchgrass biofuel. Anyway, so why switchgrass? Well, as I mentioned, it's native to North America. And in that little picture on the right, you could see it grows in most of the U.S. and a good chunk of Canada, east of the Rockies. And it's suited to grow in marginal land that cannot normally support crops. Now, that's a big deal because ethanol, which is made from food products, means that we're using land for food to make fuel. And with all of the starving people in the world, it doesn't make sense to choose fuel over food. And switchgrass, even though it's not a food, it goes beyond that by saying we don't need to even grow it in good farmland that would normally produce food. We grow it where food doesn't normally grow. Moving on, it has consistently high yields. It requires minimal maintenance or agricultural input. It's easy to establish from seed. And once you plant it, it generally grows back every year because it's a perennial. And but they would probably replace it about once every 10 years. So, what are the benefits of switchgrass biofuel? Well, first, it would reduce our dependence on foreign oil. As you know already, oil is the best transportation fuel. This could be used as a transportation fuel, which would mean we would not be dependent on oil from unstable regions where our country spends a lot of political capital to stabilize. It'll reduce the fossil fuel emissions because the only emissions from the biofuel are the carbon which was absorbed in the plant through its life, as opposed to fossil fuels which emit much more. It'll boost the rural economies. It's going to reduce erosion of land, and it will enhance wildlife habitat. So, how feasible is it? So for switchgrass to be feasible, it must be profitable to the producer. So this brings into question, how much land does it take? How reasonable it is to transport the grass? So let's take an example of a 50 million gallon per year switchgrass biofuel plant. And let's look at the table below, which will give us some information. So let me zoom in here. What we have on the left is different types of switchgrass. The next column is the yield, or the dry matter tons per acre. The acres needed to grow 625,000 dry matter tons in a year, and the percent of land in a 25-mile radius. So let me explain this. Um, it, the yield should make sense. How much grass you get per acre. The reason we chose 625,000 dry matter tons per year is that's about how much you're going to need to source this plant. And then why do we pick a 25-mile radius? Because that is what we consider a reasonable radius to transport the grass to. So when you look at the different yields, at the top you have kind of a low yield of 1.75. At the bottom, a higher one, 9.4. And then you see the percent of land that a 25-mile radius would need to be made up of this switchgrass fields. Well, 28% is just too high to be feasible. Whereas down low, the 5.3%, that is very feasible. But that is from hybrid switchgrass, which leads to the next point. So how do we get these high yields? Well, we get the high yields by genetically modifying the grass to get higher yields, which will make it economically feasible. But our concern is that modified switchgrass could mix with wild-grown grass, and we'd have unknown consequences. So you might be thinking, well, there's a lot of genetically modified foods out there. So why is this a bigger concern? Well, it's because the food is in a smaller quantity. It's well controlled. There's just less risk compared to these vast oceans of wild grass, or I should say GMO grass. So to overcome this, researchers are now trying to deactivate the male and female portion of the grass's reproductive system. And once they're able to do this, then the expectation is that switchgrass biofuel will become very, very popular. So, in summary, I think switchgrass biofuel is a great potential green technology for the future. It will give us the transportation fuel that we need. It will lower our carbon emissions, and it will lower our dependence on foreign oil. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.